Ladies and gentlemen, Daniel Forouzan here with the Schmoozin with Forouzan podcast. Some podcasts excite me more than others, I'll be honest with you. I think that what's happening in the world of wrongful incarceration and what's happening in the world with organizations such as Exonerated Nation, Innocent Project, Loyola Project for the Innocent, etc., various other criminal reform and justice reform organizations, establishments, all this stuff. This is all very interesting to me. And I think the reason it's interesting to me, ladies and gentlemen, is there are people in jail right now who should not be there. And every day they sit in jail is another day I feel guilty as a member of this society that they are there. And that's why this podcast and all the related podcasts are so important. I'm here today, ladies and gentlemen, with Mr. Obie Anthony. Obie came on the podcast before, and the majority of the time, the last time he came on, we discussed his experience through incarceration. And while I think we might get into a little bit of that today, ultimately what we're here to talk about today is not Mr. Obie Anthony, the exoneree, but the founder of the organization, Exonerated Nation, an organization that helps people transition back into society once they've been exonerated. Obie, how are you, sir?
Doing pretty good. How you doing, Danny? Thank you again, man. I really appreciate you for reaching out. I really enjoyed our last podcast that we had. And I just think that what you're doing is a necessary need, brother, that you put information out there, making the public aware about not only the sort of consequence of what transpires before a person is placed in prison for a crime in which they didn't commit, but also how you have your mind, heart, and ear open to listening to what's transpiring after they get exonerated, which is the whole person, right? And it's not just half. So I really appreciate this opportunity today.
I appreciate you making the time. I know these topics are not always easy. I invite everyone, check out the last podcast. We'll link it down below if you want to hear more of what the experience was like in jail. But let's go ahead, just so we have a baseline for everyone. Obie, how long were you incarcerated?
So I was incarcerated for a total of 17 and a half years, close to 18 years. I got locked up back in 1994. And subsequently, my exoneration happened in 2011.
Okay, so 2011, you get exonerated, and I'm sure there was a period of just shock and exuberation and all these various emotions. But what I want to get into today, the meat of it is, how do you I mean, what age did you go into jail?
So my feet touched the penitentiary grounds January 1996. I was 19 years old, going on 20. I would have turned 20. I would have been turned 20 the September of that year. I mean, like, it's really difficult to sort of kind of describe that first day, right? It's like, what I mean? It's like, when you rent in your mind, you think about, your neck up under the gavel right before it goes down,
Oh,
right? Or you think about being in a lion's den, or think about not being able to swim and your friend pushes you in the water anyway. It's that panic feeling that you got, realizing like what is this? And having to experience that panic feeling for 17 and a half years.
good Lord. Okay, so 19 years of age, you go to prison, and then you get out after 17 and a half, 18 years. Talk to me about that transition, because just so everyone knows where we're going with this, the organization that Obie founded, what they do specifically is focus not on necessarily getting people out of jail, but assisting them once they're out. And I can only imagine. So that's where we're going to go with this. Talk to me about this transition. What's it like going from, like you said, that I'm not going to try to rehash what you just said, transitioning from that to going into generalized society. What's that like?
I mean, again, you gotta, I don't know, man. Like, think about it's shock, right? So the initial shock there was being tossed into a place where I wasn't supposed to be and having to spend multiple years of my life there, decades of my life there. And then kind of, shotgun backing out into what individuals call society, sort of normalcy, the world. 1990 in 2011, when I came home, man, you guys had iPhones 11. You guys was like it was just so many different things that was going on that was a shock to me, right? When I left 1994, it was Motorola, the whole, I forgot that one
The
show. But
razor.
yeah, with the big phone, it was like a
Yeah.
shoe phone. It was huge. But then I come out and it's like this big, and then everything that you can do on there. That in itself was startling and sort of kind of, offsetting in a bit because it makes you, can I do it? Can I do it? Like what, where to go, and specifically when you don't have no one around you to help you with those things, you at a loss. You rather not do it. You just kind of, go back to sort of kind of the old normal way of thinking about things, putting job applications in, walking them in, that kind of thing in your mind because you're so decades behind in regards to the technology and what you can do versus what you couldn't do back before you got incarcerated, like myself. But I mean, like and then that's just on that side. But then the other shock factor was really is the whole conjoining of the family unit again,
Mm.
right? For 2 decades of my life, I was absent from the family unit, and now here I am again. Everyone's been grown, then sort of kind of come to a place, and then excuse me, excuse me, and then to come from this world of, like I said, panic on a 24-hour, 24/7 hour basis to a place into a home to where there's no panic that's happening like that. And to that adjustment is just really difficult because they're not understanding your anxiety, sort of swivel headedness. Like, well, why are you tripping? Like they always like, what was going on? Like, what you tripping on? Like kind of thing. They still don't get you because they don't understand that sort of paranoia, that panic, that process that you had to expend
Mm.
for those decades of your life. And so that transition type of thing is really difficult too, in the light of that, family members just want to wrap their arms around you, support individuals want to wrap their arms around you, they want to take care of you, they want the best thing. And so what they're looking to do is sort of thwart off any of the bad things that may have been that has been happening out here in society that you've been away from. And so, but that comes off as a correction officer, right? Telling you what to do and
Mm.
not to do. And so it creates this sort of communication gap and understanding and how to be in the support unit that you come home to. So, what I mean, those things are challenging and just finding a job and being, sort of kind of like always references to part of the societal affairs, even in relationships.
It's an interesting thing. Okay, so there's a lot of things from the previous podcast that stuck with me. I remember you had told me this, and I've told this to other people because I think it's insightful. You said in the previous podcast, one of the things that you had to learn to do as you reintegrated was compromise. Whereas in prison, in jail, you say it, it's done. Someone disagrees with you, they're challenging your authority.
Yes. In a
Obviously,
sense. Right,
yeah.
right, right, right. In a sense, the way I want to say it is that, like, I just always describe it as no gray area. People walk away from one another in the box with an understanding. Uh, Out here, one walks away from one another having to interpret the other's point of view, where they was going, what they meant, how they were saying it. And so that's the compromising because again, as I said to you before, for 2 decades of my life, I had to have man-to-man conversations. That's all it was. It was man-to-man dominant conversations. And then I was then out here in society, it was now about man to woman, man to man. How do you temper it when you come to the woman? How do you not become so over aggressive when you're talking to the societal man, the
Mm.
individual who hasn't been out here? Where you don't come off as, people automatically know that you've been in prison. And that's a struggle and that's a challenge for individuals because no one wants to be viewed as a person that has been in a box. They want to, people want to be viewed as their authentic selves. So
What a couple of things you said here. I want to tie these points. Everything you just said, and previously you had said when someone tries to, maybe your family is trying to, help you with things, but they come off as a corrections officer. And similarly, a lack of compromise or speaking in gray zones and stuff like that. What I'm seeing is, from how I'm interpreting what you're saying, it almost feels like being incarcerated for that period of time compartmentalizes the way you can interpret certain things, and that interpretation is subjective. It's specific to you only. No one understands what you're going through except the people that have gone through what you've gone through.
Correct.
And in that's the mental challenge, I think, for me or anyone trying to put ourselves in that shoe, such that we feel the true nightmare, my friend,
Right.
that you
Right.
unfortunately went
And that's why, Daniel, I make a differentiation between post-traumatic stress versus prison traumatic stress.
through.
Prison traumatic stress creates who I am. Post-traumatic stress creates your what we see in our society in regards to mental health, in
Mm,
regards to stress, in regards to depression, because people are still, and so am I, dealing with childhood things that's happened in our childhood, in our environments that we grew up in, that created these traumas, that created these additional stresses. And we've learned to sort of not normalize it, but sort of work through those stresses by way of societal things. It's tremendously different when you suffer from prison traumatic stress,
mm.
because we're dealing with hypervigilance. Excuse me, my dog is looking for me. She may need to go out. Hypervigilance. We're dealing with, paranoia. We're dealing with communication. We're dealing with so many things that are outside of poor education, drugs in our environment, violence, all of the things that are in the community that we're living in, right?
Mm.
We wasn't, because we was isolated. We didn't have to suffer through the school shootings. We seen it on the TV, but people out here was living it. While we was in there living, sort of, dang, is our neighbor going to come out and stab me? Is it, what I mean, like when I go out to go get some water, like, what I mean, like is what's the atmosphere feel like? Is it, what I mean? Is it tension in the air? It's always about the tension. Can you feel the tension? And so, it's just different, you know what I mean? And that's why it's so important to sort of understand what happens, sort of kind of what happens psychologically, mentally, emotionally, and ultimately physically to a person when they're trapped in an 8x10.
Okay. I certainly appreciate all that. What I want to do is talk about your organization, Exonerated Nation, because clearly what I'm hearing, and I think what we're discussing, is there are traumatic experiences that everyone has, childhood, whatever, but then there's the stuff that happens in prison and jail. And go back to the original podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I'll never forget the story you said when you saw those people were just laughing at the table. You turned
Yeah.
around, you look back, and the guy was getting stabbed to death. I mean, as I was hearing these things, I can, to this day, I remember those comments from you during the podcast for good reason. So someone goes through that trauma, the post prison, the post jail trauma, that the
Right.
incarceration trauma, and then comes back into society. And as you put it, they're shotgunned into society. And hey, now you have to compromise. Hey, now someone's trying to give you advice. They're not it comes off like they're your correctional officer.
Right. Right.
Sounds intense to me, to be honest with you. Sounds incredibly intense. Is that why you started Exonerated Nation?
In part, it is. I mean, like, the bigger part of why Exonerated Nation started, because so in 2011, when I came home, there was no services for exonerated individuals. There is still no system set up for those individuals that are exonerated when they re-enter back into the community. There have been laws that have been passed because of activist work, such as the work that I've done and others have done. In other words, to assist and help to get bills passed, to put in place some services for the exonerated person. But when I came home, that was the situation, that, I was faced with no help with no housing, no help with no mental health, no help with no medical health, no help with no counseling, no help with nothing. And I begin to realize and understand how that placated not only just myself, but the community or the fraternity that I was now involved with. And
Mm.
I'm now part of this fraternity of guys and gals that I didn't go to school to be part of. I didn't elect to be part of this fraternity, but
Yeah.
I am now. And so now I have to do what I'm obligated to do as a a member of this fraternity, is to do something that's going to affect us, that's going to work and help us. You know what I mean? And so, um, we started, me and Cadelis Rick Walker. I had a conversation with I call him my elder,
Mm.
one of our elders in the community who had been home before myself, that had already did previous work before me. And I had a conversation with him about, hey, look, man, what is this going on? Like, why is nothing there? And at the same time, realizing, just the way how we counsel one another, understanding that we were both still going through it. He had been home for 5, 6, 7, 8 years at that point, and he was still sort of going through this psychological sort of kind of hamster on the wheel, traumatic experience, time after time, trigger after trigger. And I said to him, like, look, bro, I was never the guy in the box that sat around and listened to individuals' complaints. I heard what they had to say, but at the end of the day, I acted on that stuff. Whether it was because, keep things sort of not happening, whether it was because I seen things was about to happen, and it was just like, no, we're not going to go down this long road. So I was an actor. I've always been an actor. Like, that's a good with the talk, but let's do something. And so, he said to me, if I was serious about doing this work, that he would be right there when I turned around. He had my back. And so 2015, 16, we saw our 501c3 to establish Exonerated Nation,
Mm.
because we realized and understood the immediate needs of us when we walked out of the door, but we also understood the traumatic experience in which we all experienced. And we realized and appreciated the healing process that we gave one another through the peer-to-peer counseling, just calling one another, checking in with each other.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Hey, what's going on? What you going through? What's happening in your world type thing. And so we realized and understood how there was a benefit to us, and thought to, let's do this for everybody. And so gratefully so, we was given our 501c3 December 2016 or 15. We began to start building and doing the work, and building and making relationships within the community, and most importantly, going out and educating individuals. And it's exactly how I found myself, on your first podcast, because for us, and me, when I say us, me and Cadelis Walker, our mission is to educate and not make aware. There's a difference between the two, and I think that the public need to be a sort of understanding of that. Right? Is that education creates action.
Mm.
You are informed, and then information moves. Information moves. Awareness is almost like fight and flight, right? Fight and fright, the fight freeze thing, because knowledge makes you fight. Awareness freezes you in the moment. You do nothing. And so we decided not to make people aware anymore. We don't want them to be frozen shocked by what happened to us. We want them to act and do something.
Mm.
And realize and understand and appreciate the fact that what we're going through, it is not what we put ourselves through, but something that the system that we all, vote for, the system that we all, sort of support and acknowledge, this is what they're doing to your innocent people in the population. They're realizing and understanding that they're taking them, throwing them in hellholes, and not giving a crap about what transpires while they're in the hellhole. And
Yeah.
so, yes, to answer your question, we've seen that to be one of the most important things to go, to make sure that we looked at, pay attention to.
I've never told anyone what I'm about to say, but I'm curious what your answer is going to be. I remember when you and Lori Levinson, shout out to Loyola Law School, both
Right,
both Obie
right,
and
right,
yeah, both
right,
Obie and I
right,
are wearing
right,
it.
right.
Um,
Gotta love him. God, I love his
Absolutely.
Levinson.
Yeah, I think I'm out of focus, but that'll figure itself out, I'm sure. Um, There was the West Side Bar Association, which is a organization that I founded. It's a legal network. We had an event. You and Lori Levinson were there, and Amanda Knox was there.
Yes.
And I remember at some point, Miss Knox was in the backstage, and she was a little nervous. Understandably, it's like 600 lawyers in the audience. Um, and she asked for your audience. So I went, I got you, and I took you back there. And the moment you saw her, you two embraced. I've never been to prison. I've never been to jail. I've had a rather privileged upbringing. My brain at that point was exploding. I was like, whoa, this is surreal. Had you two met or even interacted before that moment?
So yeah, so I met Amanda Knox. Oh my. So I went to my first conference. So we got out. I met Amanda Knox in 2012 at our first conference.
Hmm.
But we actually both got walked out of jail October 4th, 2011.
Wow.
We both got out the same day. And we were both she came to the second conference that I was at. And we met, and I just told her that, I'm in full support of her, and that, what I mean, that she's in community now, things like that. And then we end up we met up again there at the West Side Bar
Hmm.
Association through this thing. And it was like, oh, manager, let her know I'm here. And it's a comfortableness. It's the comfortableness and the willing to share when you know you have the support of the individual who suffered like you.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And so it's like having two individuals that was victims of rape to being able to share their story. They can comfort one another. They support one another. They understand one another. We was raped by the system. They took time of our lives we can never, ever, ever get back. Nor are we even in the thought of trying to get it back. We're more in the mindset of creating for the future, not even for the present, for ourselves, but for individuals that's coming after us, the both of us. So when we was at the West Side Bar Association, it was like we needed each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Uh, it's almost like forget those two. When you have that's what exonerees are for one another. It's like a source of power and a source of strength and confidence and sort of reliance that they know it's there, because they know they can always turn to one another and understand. They can look at each other to get focus. It's not something that you could do when it comes to the individuals who hadn't suffered like you have.
So let me ask you, let's bring in the reason I brought her up was you mentioned the fraternity. And I could tell immediately you guys had a bond that no one else in that room was going to have. That was obvious. But let's talk about that because you brought it back to the what is it that people need? What is it when they come out of that situation? Let's just quantify it. What are the top three things that people need that come out of these circumstances and are shotgun back into society?
Off the top, they need financial support off the top.
Mm.
And and then not only that. So what I mean by that is that so again, as I referenced earlier, laws has changed now in the state of California, which gives that creates a pocket of assistance for them, such as gate money, such as help with housing and education and automatic enrollment to Medi-Cal, Medicaid, all of the things that wasn't there for me. They don't have the education on how to access that, right? Right. And so when it comes to like, man, so they get out, like all of this stuff is there, but how do I use the computer to get to access that?
Mm.
How do I even go through to go put on an application online? How do I take the information in regards to, I worked for 30 years while I was in there. How do I translate that into a resume? You know, those sort of kind of things, and which is those that immediate service, that sort of kind of that essential necessary thing that is there. And of course housing, of course mental health services, of course understanding that for like myself 2 decades of my life was taken away, and so that's social security that I can't get. Is that
Really? You don't like yeah,
that
you had no I never thought of that.
credit? So when you think about so people think about expungement. Well, you gotta then they get expunged. Yes, you're right. They got expunged all the way to the Department of Justice. However, Equifax still have that information. So when I go buy a house, go look to buy a house, or when I go do my credit, we have Equifax, TransUnion, Transamerica. All of that information is still trapped in there. It's a blocker. People don't understand how far it goes. They think that, oh, you're free, all is well. It is not. It is far from all is well, and it will never be well because we still will always having to deal with the prison traumatic stress that is never leaving us. When you think about your veterans that go off to war that experience battle day after day, that's what we did. It was confined though. It was orchestrated by the system. It wasn't because we was at war or we was preventing something or we was trying to help something. No, we had to go to battle every single day. So it is that same psychological process that they suffered through the trauma that they suffered through. It's just similar to ours.
Let me ask you, what does your organization do generally? And if we need to take a break, we can take a break. But what does your organization do generally to address these things?
So we just come off the cups of a leadership healing retreat
Okay.
that we were able to host. Exonerated Nation was able to host in Monterey, California, right there off the Pacific Grove at the Asilomar. Beautiful location, really relaxing. You know, you have all the amenities there, hiking, you can go to the water, you can just relax just being there on the scene of Asilomar. I really appreciated that. But what we do is not only do we bring leaders from around the United States that are active in this world of reentry and reform to have furthering conversations to see what is happening, where it's happening, and what is not happening, where it's not happening, but to heal, to have that peer-to-peer healing, to not only to heal, but to look at new toys to have in our arsenal to help us defend ourselves against those triggers. And so we bring individuals together that has been, you know, impacted by the justice system that has turned into justice impacting people
Mm.
to continue to strengthen them, motivate them, and then heal them. And not only do we do those things, but we also are mainly and most importantly concerned about their immediate needs. Understanding that when you walk out of that door, that everything is just not glitz and glammy. It's just not all goes back to normal, right? I don't get to go right back to the job and clock in, right? None of that gets to happen. And understanding that gap in the time that it takes for that to happen. And also appreciating the fact that, you know, every exonerated person that comes home, they don't get compensated. And I think that that's one of the things that runs in people's mind. Oh, they, you know, you was in prison for something you didn't do. They have to pay you. No, they don't. No, they don't. And there are a plethora of individuals that can come and say that. They have denied them. Not because their constitutional rights wasn't violated, not because the prosecutor didn't withhold evidence, not because their defense attorney wasn't ineffective, not because they didn't do everything that they could do to frame them, break every law that they could possibly break to put that person in jail, while that person broke no laws to go to jail. Here it is now, you know, oh well, it's just an all well. It's just similar to sort of kind of the environment that we in, this political environment that we in now, the battle between the Democrats and the Republicans. Republicans, oh well, that's just so what they dealing with. That's what they dealing with. Democrats, oh, this is what it is. Meanwhile, the people suffer. Meanwhile, the exonerated suffer.
Mm.
And so that's why, you know, for us, Qdelis, Rick Walker, and myself, we said, oh hell no. You know, they can do that all they want. But nevertheless, this is what we're gonna do. So
Well, we had our last podcast. What was it? 2 years ago? Was it a year and a half ago?
year and a half, I think it was now.
I was clearly I'm a changed man since then because I was able to withhold my emotions during that podcast. But this topic to me, it stabs me in the heart. Like I mean, your social security. What do you put on your resume? Like, how does that work?
You're right. So how does that work? Is that you take, the 30 years, the 20 years, the 15 years that you may have worked in the culinary, in the kitchen, in prison, and be creative with your language.
Yeah.
You take the 15, 20 years that you worked on the yard crew to be creative with the language.
Yeah.
The 20, 15 years that you had to spend passing out the laundry, cleaning up the buildings, all of the stuff that you had to do just to have program, just so I can go to the yard so that I can become A1A, so that I can get to the law library every time that I can get a chance. Because if I don't have no work and I'm not going to school and I'm A2B and I'm stuck in the cell, that means that I only get out these many times a week and I can only go to the law library. So I can't fight for my freedom but 3 days out of the week, 2 days out of the week. Nobody knows about none of the stuff that transpires in that barbed wire house. The barbed wire house was put together for disposable people. While the people out here in the society didn't imagine that innocent people could be thrown in that box too. They don't think that it can happen to them. Right? I go to work, pay my taxes. I have, I'm doing all of the right stuff. Ain't no way the cops finna knock on my door saying that I did something. That only happens over there. That only happens to them or those,
Terrifying. Truly terrifying. Let me ask, because I so appreciate, I think for anyone listening at home, and I think for people like me who just these experiences to us, hearing the details, I went in, phones were this big. I came out, phones were this big, and now they can do all these things. Dear Lord, how overwhelming that must be. Let me ask you, does your organization also provides care packages, right? I've seen those.
Yes.
What's in a? I think knowing what's in a care package has to
Right.
like what's
Right. So, off the top, we understanding it. So, like, yes, each state may exonerate across the United States, say California, 12 to 13 a year, or 9 to 11, or 7 to 10 individuals a year. Then Texas may have this, or Chicago may get a bulk. Just understanding that we don't have the finances to do all of the stuff that we would like to put in the care packages. But initially, we was doing what was done to me. We was shocking people, putting the phone in there. Here's the phone, right? Here's take that. You just don't understand. That phone was a shock, man. Like even I still got a buddy like right now today, Andrew Wilson, another Loyola Project for the Innocent Exoneree. And Andrew Wilson, he's still like, man, look, I don't deal with the phone because hey. But we throw that in there. We put some apparel, we put some clothing in there, a gift card. You know what I mean? So that they can have get what they want. You know what I mean? Some clothing that they may choose for themselves versus that which everyone else may be giving to them or donate to them. Here's some money for you can make your own choices, which we also realized at that point was a challenge too, because here you are walking into this department store now with all of these choices. Like, oh my goodness, like what do I people don't know that was an issue because we were so limited to the things that we could choose from in the prison till now having, you got this and that. Like, man, I don't even know what to even choose, where I start at, what to even look at. So yeah, we put a gift card in there, some apparel, informational packet to let them know about the work and the services that we are providing. Also, information in the packet. Also, let them know about the bills that were passed in the state of California. And in other words, that for their access, and also to inform them that we're there for them as a community. And my line is like a hotline, bro. Like I joke you not, like it's like a, it's not like it's I just call it a hotline because I get calls from all over the United States,
Really?
from exonerated individuals, non-exonerated individuals, family members of exonerated individuals, individuals that get, looking to get their family members exonerated, because they family and they're suffering from a wrongful conviction. And so, you find yourself in a counseling sort of kind of place, also a connecting kind of place, right? Where you sort of kind of helping individuals understand the process, connect them to the process, and also to help them sort of navigate and understand, appreciate the process, right? You can't plant a seed in the ground today and bear fruit tomorrow,
Yeah.
type of thing. So helping them navigate through that and have patience with everything. And so we try to not only deal with the exonerated individual, the person who's suffering in prison, but also the family members as well, understanding that this person will be coming back into their life as well. It's going to be some challenges, things that they're going to have to help navigate through too as well. And so, again, it's about the whole body and not part of the body.
I can use the word from my place of privilege. It's interesting thing because it is an interesting thing to me. I mean, people experiencing this, I don't think interesting is a term they've used, but having put out that disclaimer, it is an interesting thing to me what would be in a care package because it gives a certain insight into the dilemma, the dilemma of reestablishing someone X many years later back into whatever's going on, whether it's the size of the cell phone or
Right.
it's just going to a grocery store and being overwhelmed.
Right.
What if I said to you, what are like the in terms of so we discussed the issues that people deal with. What about some solutions? I know there's no like solution just like that. If I said to you, Obi, what do you find is the most helpful? Someone calls you, you send out a care package, whatever it is in terms of helping these people's hearts, what is the most beneficial in your opinion?
Societal community.
Mm,
Societal community. It is for the community to understand that they're dealing with, we don't want to be called victims, you know what I mean? But nevertheless, that these are the individuals that are coming to their place, asking for a job, looking for somewhere to stay, right? They're trying to rent a place because they don't have no rental history. The apartment manager, they give them issues. Well, you don't have no rental history, you have no credit history, we can't rent to you. It's that, but that is what's most important for individuals coming home. It is for the societal community to wrap their arms around them, understand, sympathize, empathize with what their situation is. Not, sometimes even if you want to, well, the person, don't even just the situation. It's the situation. You can be in that situation. And would you want someone else to do something for you,
mm,
help you navigate, help you begin to start getting your bearings? And so when you think about, like, even when we was thinking about the care package, it was things that I automatically said, no, 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 don't put that in there, like a laptop or like a laptop or a little iPad.
mm.
I'm like, look, man, like the iPad gonna go to the side for a long time. Somebody in the family gonna end up using it because they ain't gonna have no idea about none of them apps,
Yeah.
what to do with it. Like that'll be a waste. So let's not do that. Let's think about something that we know is going to be tangible and usable for them that they can use. So we initially, like again, getting back to like cosmetics,
Mm.
knowing that they needed, cosmetic things. Like I said, the gift card because so they can get them some clothes that's going to fit them versus, you know what I mean, having to sort through someone else's. So I tell you the crazy thing about, we're just grateful, gingerly used. We absolutely appreciate those things because I tell people all the time. So imagine, so when we first went to jail, we had to wear they didn't give us new boxers or new socks. It was washed clothes that someone else had wear. And no one knew how many other times you couldn't determine based on the little BDBs that was in the boxers. But with that, you know what I mean, you sort of just had to deal with it. And so we try to, get these guys and gals, especially the women, that's coming home. Oh, here's new. Here you go. Here's a gift card. Go get you something new. Just what I mean. All of that, which is great. And so again, funds in the pocket, knowing that they can have that if they reached out. Well, where can I call to get a job? That kind of thing. Where can I go get a job at? Because again, realizing they don't have that savviness that you have. Like just put, for an example, today, my realtor just had to tell me, look, well, Obie, you do know that you could just put in Google vegan places to eat. You didn't have to call me. What? Dang it, I didn't think of that. You're right. I could. You're right. Thank you. I'm gonna go do that right now. So it's those things there, you know what I mean? Like that is just people think like, well, everybody know that. No, everybody don't know that. It's not common sense. So
That's why it's good. And I know these aren't easy. I know they're not easy. I know these aren't easy before we start, my friend. But that's why it's so good that you do it. It's why I'm so privileged to have you on. Look how much I've learned today, the Social Security,
yeah,
the Google thing you just pointed out, the clothing, the what I would call the compartmentalization of your life when you're incarcerated. The thing that you pointed out about someone coming off as a corrections officer. And my brain is taking this information in, and look, I will never have the feeling, the understanding, the complete picture. But especially to people like me who have had the luxury of not having these types of things happen to us, it is so important to hear this stuff, especially you guys listening at home, because it allows us it allows those of us who are not in the fraternity to have a taste of what
right.
it's like to be in it. And I think that's important. I think it's why what you do is so important. Guys, we're going to put a link in the bottom of this. Please take a look at the website. Take a look at Exonerated Nation.
Thank
I don't know what charities or there's few issues in the world that strike me the way this one does. And let me just put something out there real quick. I operate within society. I expect my society to do certain things. And then my society in certain areas breaks down and puts people in places they don't deserve to be for long periods of time. And then they get spit out. And there's no, as Mr. Anthony here just pointed out, there's no like off ramp. It's a shotgun.
you. Right.
If I'm part of that society, I'm humiliated. I'm humiliated because my society is failing the people who are the citizens of that society. The very society that I benefit from is hurting other people. Okay, so.
No, Daniel, I like the way that you said that, man. That was so on point because, just something for you to think about. The attorney generals of the state of California reached out to me,
Mm.
asking me how, what is, like what's there, like what is needed. Right? They asked me what is needed for the population that is coming home that has been exonerated, and whether or not if any governmental official, any governmental body reached out to us about assistance with services. Think about that. If the attorney general of the state, that is the governing body of the laws that's in that state, is asking you whether or not, hey, is there a system for you guys? That's an issue. Right? What was there for you? The attorney general should be there to enforce those laws that are now in place to make certain that they happen for the people that they're supposed to happen for. Mm. But that's the opposite of what's transpiring. So that means that the governmental system that is wrapped around us has dissolved themselves of all responsibility.
Yeah.
All responsibility of the framing of putting someone in prison, and also what happens to them after. Like how much more sort of kind of what can be shown of or heard for the population, for the society to realize and understand that if the governmental system in regards to this criminal justice system is concerned, has a non-issue with taking the innocent body off of out of society, then we need to go back to something 101. because humanity 101. Because humanity 101 taught me to love thy neighbor like I love thyself. Right? To look out for him as I look out for myself. And if I know that I would not want to be in prison for something I didn't do, and I dang sure know I want my neighbor to be in there either.
Yeah, I think that's a very powerful point, Obi. I know you've been very generous with your time, so we'll get this wrapped up. But guys, this is a humanitarian thing. This is not Republicans, Democrats. These are human beings with heartbeats in places that they were never supposed to be, did not deserve to be. And then even when they have the success of getting out, now they have a new challenge, which they should have never had in the first place.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So I say from the depths of my heart, whatever value it has as a citizen of the state, as a part of this community, I apologize, sir, for what happened to you. I apologize for all the other people it happened to. And sincerely, I invite guys, if you're watching this, if you got a heart, please go to Mr. Anthony's website. We're going to link it down there below. So before we close up, Obi, I always like to give my my guest the last word. You got anything to let us know?
Yeah, man. Shout outs to Loyola, man. Love Miss Levinson. Shout outs to Loyola. Project for the Innocent, man. Like, I love Adam Grant. I love Lori Levinson. They're my heart. You know what I mean? Like the heart and the lungs of my body. And shout outs to Daniel. Like, thank you for what you do continuously, bringing the information, bringing the knowledge to the people, giving individuals that have been affected. So bringing the affected body to the forefront to lead the conversation. I really appreciate what you're doing. I really appreciate not only you doing that, but also Dan, just so his audience to know, Daniel put his money where his mouth is at too. Not only does he do this, but he also donates. So I say that you guys too, to say, to follow his lead, to tap into that, because sometimes we don't know what to do or how to do it. Daniel was in that place at one point. He's like, well, you know what? I'm just going to donate. They know what to do. They'll get it done. I really appreciate and love you for that, man. Thank you always. And I appreciate the opportunity of being on your show, man.
The very least I could do, and there'll be more where that came from. So, Obi, thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.